Hello everybody. Welcome to this episode on Laid Back the Atorozinga podcast. And today we'll be talking about failure, the path to success. And with me today, I have do I call you Dr. Ike? No, do I call you Frost or do I call you Tiago? Which is it?
Either way, all titles apply.
Oh, okay.
All titles apply.
Okay. Ikenna is a medical doctor. He works here in the UK, and I've known Ikenna since 2007, 2008.
If not earlier.
More than that, actually. Yeah. But yeah. So today we are going to talk about failure. So let's start off the conversation. When you talk about failure, how do you define failure? Because it depends on perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess today is apt to talk about failure because Man United are woefully failing. As a Man United fan,
yeah,
I'm sure you feel the pain of that failure. But anyway,
but you know what they say? If you fail repeatedly, you end up being so numb to the pain. Because now I'm numb to the Manchester United pain. Yeah. They failed a lot. Now I'm used to their failure these days, so I'm numb to the pain now.
Fair enough. I mean, you could what I don't know. I would simply define it as the absence of success. Really, if you don't succeed, you failed. I don't think there's any other way to. Well, there are many other perspectives you can sort of take in terms of looking at failure, but it's what it is, right? If you do not succeed, you're failed.
Yeah. Okay. So, saying that now, okay. Okay, let's football aside. So when you talk about failure, could you say failure is a good thing or a bad thing? Like going back, reflecting on your own life experiences, would you say failure was a good thing or a bad thing, or did you prepare you to success, or did you actually like deviate you from your road to success? Well, how has it been for you so far, so good?
I mean, it's difficult to say that failure has been a bad thing, but it's difficult to say that failure is not a bad thing. But I guess it depends on what you take away from failure, right? Yeah. The thing with society now is everyone has their lives on social media, and nobody gets to talk about the sort of the parts where they failed, the areas where they failed in. Nobody talks about their failures. You see them shining, you see the finished article. Yeah. You see everyone, celebrating their successes, celebrating their wins. I mean, that's. I'm not saying that's wrong in itself, because that's about the best thing you can do for yourself. And I can't claim to be an expert on failure or success either.
Yeah.
But I think what brought me this far in my life, in my career, in everything I've done as a whole is, I guess, the lessons I learn from every single time I fail.
Yeah.
It's not about it's not about the failure in itself, because everyone fails. You take a hit, you're pushed to the ground, you struggle. But then again, if you only fail when you stay down, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you pick out lessons from every time you're down, and you use those lessons to try to get back up again, then I guess yes, you failed, but you've become a better version of yourself, and you most likely will succeed. Maybe not the next time, maybe not the time after that, because you can fail repeatedly. But I guess it's about looking at how you failed, and looking at the process and becoming better. And eventually if you pick at something hard enough, you most likely succeed at it, to be honest.
Yeah. That's something a lot of people like. You made a very good point there about social media. You know, there's something I figured out recently. I've always been this kind of person. I'm not scared to talk about my else. I can talk about failures because I feel like I still win anyway. So what's the point? And I feel like what I thought was me talking about failure is actually to give the other person the realistic view of the whole thing. For example, I just completed a PhD. It doesn't make sense for me to come out and tell somebody who wants to do a PhD, oh, it's so easy, you're gonna get to the end, and you see what I mean? It makes no sense to me. But if you talk about your failures, because it's part of it, like it's all about resilience. You fail and fail and fail, especially when you do experiments, for example. Man, you fail and fail. So many experiments will go wrong. Things will go wrong in the lab. You get frustrated. You get demoralized. Some people end up with imposter syndrome. Like, it's normal. But at the end of the day, what matters is do you have the resilience to get to the end? What did you do? How did you overcome the failure? How did you actually troubleshoot to actually come up with solutions to your problems? But then, I figured it's not something a lot of people are comfortable with. They don't really like talking about their failures.
Yeah.
So rather, what they normally do is, let's say, for example, you come and tell me, hey, okay, because maybe we are cool with each other and I know your capabilities, it's not a big deal. Then you tell me, oh, I didn't do well in this exam. Next thing you see is somebody will start laughing at you. And I'm wondering why you don't I don't get it. You see what I mean? It doesn't mean that when the person goes back to do it, the person will not pass. But I notice that people will rather lie and tell you they did well, even though they failed. So I do not get it.
I mean, you said something interesting, right? You talked about you mentioned resilience, right?
Yeah.
That's something when you talk about in the world today, people may frown at you. Because the other day I was reading a tweet and someone said the word resilience should be eliminated from the NHS. And I didn't respond, but in my mind I knew that I disagreed with that, because you cannot eliminate the word resilience. The only way people are able to dust themselves up in any industry, really, not just healthcare or not just education, is the ability to get back up when you struggle, get back up when you fail at something.
Yeah.
And I still cannot sort of get my mind around the mindset that when someone fails, people laugh at them. I mean, I sort of I sort of struggle to see why humanity can sometimes be like that. But that's one of the realities of life, right? Some people will gloat when they see you fail, but I guess part of the road to success, right? From failure, is part of learning to deal with. Like you said, it comes back to resilience. Learning to deal with when people gloat at your failure
and laugh at you.
Looking at that, yeah, exactly. So when people laugh at you, you look at that in the face, and yes, they've laughed at you. Okay, so what? Right?
Yeah.
So what?
but you know, I used to be so scared of failure until one time my elder brother told me something I never forget. He told me, every gossip, even when people are laughing at you, it has an expiry date, and that's true. The day he told me that, I told myself he has a point, because, for example, if I feel like this person is laughing at me, it's possible the person who is laughing at you are much better than that person.
Yeah.
But because you and the person is using your own failure or whatever to make himself feel good, feel better, whatever. But the moment you realize that this thing has an expiry date, you might actually do this thing tomorrow and you'll be successful. And there's one thing I've figured out. I don't think there's anybody out there who is successful in any goddamn thing in this life who has not failed. I don't think so. It's not possible.
I agree with that 100%.
It's not possible. If for example, let's say you're looking for a job, you apply. It's possible you could apply to like 2,000 companies, and 1,999 will reject you. Only one will accept you. It's life. But when you talk about it, it sounds like, oh, this person is always failing. But no, even though they do fail, but they would rather not talk about theirs, because there's this positivity, would I call it mania or syndrome all over the world now. Everybody wants to sound so positive, which makes no sense. But being constructive and realistic is you weighing the pros and cons and actually saying, actually failed here, how can I make it this better? And you see what I mean? Like balancing it out.
Excuse me. Yeah.
But everybody wants to sound so positive. Energy god or what? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all a lie. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's I get that. Everyone wants to tell a good story about themselves. If you sort of think about it that way, no one wants to be the one that has the sub story, and no one wants to be the one with the story that is full of failure. And you want to. I mean, it's a capitalist world, right? Generally, let's ignore the few nations that are communist or socialist. In a capitalist society, you want to sell yourself.
Hold on. It says see finish comes when you talk about your failures.
Sorry?
It says see finish comes when you talk about your failures.
No. I mean, so when nobody wants to be the one that sells themselves short, right?
Okay.
Nobody wants to be the one that looks like that has a story full of failures.
Okay.
Right. If you see what I mean. I mean, yes. I think there might be an element of see finish, right?
Yeah.
But then again, that depends on how you tell your story and how your story ends, on how you want it to end.
Yeah.
But it's a capitalist world. Everyone wants to sell themselves. The same way we sort of look at some countries, right? Some countries don't show the poverty that exists in them, and then
true.
everyone associates poverty with Africa. But then again, there are slums everywhere.
And that's
right?
true. Yeah.
Exactly. Because most countries that don't show the poor parts of themselves are selling themselves as world powers, and this is true for every part of society, countries, little communities, and down to individuals, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's about how the world works now and how people want to.
But I understand what you mean. But do you know the funny thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm beginning to understand the word in detail, to understand that it could actually it could be a bad strategy for me as well, because normally I'm the kind of person, I know I'm good at this, I know I'm good at that, but I'll still tell a negative story. I just want to get reactions, just to see how the person reacts. How the person reacts actually tells me whether I can trust this person or not. I don't know. I've always done in my life. I could go somewhere now and let's say somebody is looking down on you. You know this is normal reaction for people. Let's say, for example, you're a smart guy. You can be a smart guy. Let's say you're having a conversation with somebody and the person is being condescending intellectually to you. The normal reaction, because you're a smart person, is for you to put the person down, show the person that you're smart.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
the natural reaction,
it's the natural reaction. But the kind of person I am, I will never react. I will even say dumb, but like you think I'm the dumbest person ever.
Yeah, but then, the question there is whether that battle is worth fighting. Sometimes.
No,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And but the thing is, I used to do it because I really want to get to the end of it and know how the person thinks. It actually, and the truth is, most of the time I'm not wrong, because if that person cannot respect you at that particular level, that person can never. Even if the person gets to know tomorrow that you are this, you are that, you see the person just faking it out. You see what I mean? You just want to know how the person actually thinks and how the person deals with people he or she thinks he or she is better than. It gives you an idea what you can actually expect from that kind of person. But then,
I mean, this refers to the context, though.
It depends on the context. Okay, for example, for example, I've always been I ask a lot of questions, but I figure that like when you ask questions, people automatically assume that they are better than you, and I do not understand why. I don't get it.
But this is also society specific, right? There are societies where no one frowns at you for asking questions.
No, like so this is what I mean. Yeah, I could ask you something now because I'm trying to make sense of it or not. Okay. Recently, an ex-student of mine sent me an email.
Yeah. And
she told me blah blah blah. You're one of the best amazing teachers I've ever met. And then she said something actually that piqued my interest. She said, you taught me to always question things, but
right.
Listen to this. This is the part that actually made me laugh. You made me question things, and that has helped me in my learning. But most of the time, it confuses me as well, because sometimes the answers are not straightforward, and that's the truth. And when she said that, when I read the email, I was like, she has a point, because if you think about it, I like to question things. I might tell you, why is this thing green? There's no straight right or wrong answer, but I'm just curious. Why is this thing even? Why does it have to be green? You see what I mean? You might get confused because you're trying as much as possible to rack your brain to actually understand why this is green. Why do people behave the way they behave? But then it will leave you with you have a lot of questions, and you leave you more confused. But then
you end up with more questions than you started with.
Yeah,
in some instances,
but the thing is, if you think about it, is someone who is good at asking questions and being curious, the curious mind who actually ends up inventing a lot of things because the person is curious. The person is asking why this is this, why is this that. That person can actually invent a lot of things and come up with things
exactly,
people don't think
about. No one has thought about it before.
Exactly.
And no one has thought to ask questions about why it is the way it is. And someone who thinks that it's worth asking questions about it ends up finding maybe more questions, and in some cases finding an answer really.
Exactly, but this is the point I'm trying to make now. Like, but I noticed like when you ask such like questions, people automatically assume that they are better than you and you have a lot of. You see what I mean? Which makes no sense to me. But if you are the kind of person, I know this is it's just most of the people are in the world of fake it till you make it. But if you fake this thing and say, oh, you not that you know everything, but you come off with this confidence that you don't ask questions, you know what you're doing. People automatically assume
you will get lost. I mean, you will dig yourself into a very deep hole and you will get lost.
Exactly.
And that person who looks stupid that asks all the questions is actually, in my opinion, the smartest person in the room. Because you don't know anything about nothing until you find out, right?
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
No, but see the thing, it's because you are open-minded, and I like it to the point that you understand it that way. But a lot of people will never ask questions. They believe it's making they don't want to be seen as a show. I've heard a lot of people tell me that if they ask questions, it automatically translates to that they're not in control of their lives and they don't know what they're doing and they're a failure, which makes
right.
So
I mean, so you could argue that this is an impression they have of themselves,
probably,
right? Or this is an insecurity, maybe, if you will, because sometimes when you ask questions, you get answers, right?
Yeah.
And there are different contexts I've been in. I mean, especially when it's a work or like a school situation, if you ask questions, you get answers, and you find that you've improved not just your knowledge, depending on the forum, obviously, not just your knowledge, but the knowledge of other people around you. While at the time of asking the question, you probably looked like the stupid one, but by the time that question is answered, you have not just improved your knowledge, but you've improved the knowledge of everyone else. So, I mean, it depends on how everyone sort of thinks about themselves. If you think about yourself as
but you see this thing you said, it's because you see things. I like the way you see things, and it's totally different from some. A lot of people are different. Different mindsets out there. But you see this thing you just mentioned. A friend of mine actually came on the podcast one time, and he told me there's something he admires. He used to admire because we did our NYSC together, and he told me that I don't give a fuck about anybody, and I can ask any question I want. That then they were so scared like to ask questions, but I would be the person to say, okay, you know what, why is this and this? And I will get the answer, and then I'll go from there. I'll like build on that knowledge and do other things. So when he told me that, and then I asked him, then why are you scared to actually ask the question? He now told me because people don't want. Yeah, so now I now asked him, why can't you? I don't understand it. Why can't you ask your own questions? And the person was like, he doesn't want people to laugh at him. It didn't make any sense to me because, okay, for example, you could see somebody who's the people laugh at other people, especially. But there's something I've come to understand. Ikena, do you notice, for example, let's say maybe because you're smart, you rarely laugh at people who are smart, who are not that smart. Have you noticed it?
I mean, why would I want?
No. I'm trying to get the picture. Have you noticed, like, if you are smart, you rarely laugh at people or call people ET like that, like you look down on them. No, have you noticed?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly.
Have you noticed, for example, if you are good at football, you rarely call people footballers and say this guy does not like say it to be shit. Have you noticed it? It's
I mean, I'm not good at football, so I always say bad things about footballers. So.
Exactly, but I notice it's when you are inept at a particular thing that when you always say to appreciate about the other person doing that thing. Have you ever wondered why?
When you think about it, right? My guess is it may be a form of insecurity, right? Exactly. It may be that you feel that you're unable to do stuff that you feel you should be able to do. Yeah. And then you try to make yourself, like you said already, like you try to make yourself feel good about the fact that you're not able to do it. Which, I mean, I don't see how laughing at people achieves that. But then again,
no, but that's what I'm trying to prove here. I've noticed that people who are good at what they do, they rarely laugh at people. Honestly, they are the ones who are so keen to actually help out. You could argue they don't have time to laugh at people because they're so busy doing what it is they are good at. Yeah,
they can't be bothered.
No, yeah, but like, cause I can use this story, tell this story about Ejiro. I remember when I had my fire accident and I returned back to school to play football.
Yeah. And
everybody, like, because then I was using a walking stick and I was struggling again to walk and all. Ejiro was the person telling them to chill. don't laugh at this guy. Just keep on passing the ball to him until he gets strong again.
Yeah.
Like, he was one of the best players there, if not the best. But other people could make fun of the whole situation, but he didn't. This is what I mean.
Yeah.
And I could give so many examples. Like, to him, no, this person needs help. You see what I mean? He will not laugh at you. He just needs help, and he will help the person. But I've noticed people who are not so good at a particular. I don't know why. I don't know the psychology behind it, but they are the ones who make fun of others all the time. Maybe it's to mask their own insecurity, cover it up, and then shed more light on the other person. I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. I don't know why.
It could be that, right? It could also be a product of people's life experiences.
How?
Sometimes you make light of situations when you've never experienced those situations.
True, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
That's when you're more likely to make light of those situations. It's only when you've experienced something like this. When you've experienced failure, for instance, you will not be, or you'll be less inclined to laugh at people who have failed, because you know how it feels to be in that situation. And last thing you want anyone to be doing is to be laughing at you.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's dependent on what experiences you've had in life and what you sort of took away from them and what you learned from that situation and how you've used what you learned to approach situations in the future involving other people. So there's that as well. I think.
Yeah, you have a point, because it brings us back to our topic, which is failure. Because the more you try so many things in life, the more you fail, the more you are more. It changes the way you think, and you'll be more compassionate, and you try as much as possible to be there for other people, because you know how hard it is.
Exactly.
I did a PhD, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had imposter syndrome. I had never ever felt that way before. Because when I started, everybody was like in their final year, and they would do presentations. In my head, I'm like, how do they know all these things? Because I was just starting out. I was so confused. Like, I was so confused.
Am I good enough?
Exactly.
Am I in the right place?
Exactly. Am I supposed to be doing this? But then, for me to feel that way, it made it easy for me to tell my story, and I found a lot of people relating to the same story, and I found myself being like not like a mentor to other upcoming students. See what I mean?
Yeah.
If it was easy for them to relate to my story, because if you're coming in and everybody,
you were truthful, you were honest about your experience.
Yeah.
You talked about the struggles you faced. You did not focus on the successes, because it's easy to say, I came in for a PhD, I did a PhD, and bang, finished in 3 years, my research project was amazing, blah blah blah, which is what you see every year, right?
Yeah, even though that's what, like, I finished when I was like, I didn't have any issues. You see what I mean? It's good to tell people the story, because it was a journey, it was hard. You see what I mean?
It also helps people set realistic expectations of
exactly
of any journey they want to embark on. Because it's not fair to say, it's the cheapest thing you can ever do in your life, when that's untrue. And then, like you said, you probably had imposter syndrome because people whose experiences you were aware of, or whose experiences you've heard about, did not talk about their failures, right? And they talked about how it was a really smooth ride. Those were the bits that I actually heard. Yeah. And because those were the bits you heard, you're like, okay, so if I'm not having a smooth ride, then maybe you're
doing something wrong. Yeah. And most of the time, you're not doing anything wrong. But it's good to actually ask to see if there are bits and bobs you can actually change. Yeah. But sometimes you're not doing anything wrong. It's just you just need guidance. Somebody needs to hold your hand.
You just need a nudge in the right direction.
Exactly. Like, okay, someone needs to hold your hand and tell you, my guy, this is the right way to go.
Yeah,
that's it.
Exactly.
But I figure that, like, some people would rather make fun of you or try to make you even doubt yourself more instead of actually helping out.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes them feel good about themselves. I do not know. But a lot of people do. I don't know. But a lot of people do that. Or maybe they, but you know, if you can actually show that you know more than Ikenna, then that thus you have more power and control over Ikenna. So maybe that's why people actually do that. I don't know, but
I guess that's one argument, but I don't really see how that follows.
Yeah, I don't know, but only those in that situation can actually answer the question. But going forward, when you are faced with failure, how do you handle it? How do you handle failures and rejections? Like, do you get do you sulk all day? Does it affect your emotions all day, or do you just say, yeah, that's okay, and you just move on? How do you handle it, or do you process it first or process it later? How do you deal with the rejection and the failures?
I mean, I guess it depends on how much what it is you feel that meant to you, right, or means to you. Um, the first time I failed, I could not believe it, right? This was when I was still back home in Nigeria, and I was doing, like, I did my first national primaries. Um, I mean, everyone goes through grief reaction with failures. I mean, I did. First of all, I thought it was a lie. There are only 6 people pass primaries in the whole of the country.
Wow.
Okay, that's impossible. That's a lie. They must have rigged the system, rigged the process, blah blah blah. You know, all the usual stuff.
Yeah.
But the point of the fact, the point of the matter in the end was that I failed primaries. I failed. The best next thing was sort of figure out what to do next at that point. I mean, I felt really bad because that was the first time, and it meant a lot to me because I was looking at pursuing residency then back home. But I mean, how do you handle failures? I mean, I guess the way I do it is to first of all solve a lot. I like playing video games, so most times when I realize I failed at something, I would probably spend a day or two immersed in video gaming. I guess that's one way of saying that I'm in some form of denial. But in the background, I'm processing the fact that, okay, this thing has gone to shit. What's the next step, right?
Yeah.
And then usually I'm always someone who has a plan A, B, C, D in most cases.
Yeah.
So if plan A has gone to shit, I would at that point start to think about while I'm in denial, I guess, while I'm still sulking, I'll start thinking about where have I gotten to with my plan B, and how feasible is that plan B at this point.
Yeah.
And obviously roll through all plans B, C, D, and make sure they are solid as possible, and then move on. But this was my first failure, and at that point there was a plan B, but I was not thinking very actively of it at the point. The plan B of course at that point was to write the West African exam as opposed to the national exam, which I failed. I eventually passed the West African exam, yes, even though it ended up being useless because I'm not a resident in Nigeria now. But yeah, it hurts to fail. It hurts to fail every single time. Most recently, I didn't get a neurosurgery neurosurgery training job I wanted really badly. And I'm having to fall back to sort of my plan B, plan C type thing.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, you failed. It's okay to sulk. It's okay to brood. But I guess the first thing before you even fail is to make sure that you have a backup plan and not put all your eggs in sort of one basket, because you'll be more devastated than you already are if your basket containing all your eggs sort of goes to shit. This also reminds me of when I started planning to move from Nigeria. I had a really good job, but then again, I was looking at I didn't think clinical practice was working in Nigeria anymore. The system was struggling. The system is not great now, but it was not great back then either. I was looking at two options. I was looking at either moving to the US or the UK. But then again, like everyone knows, there are so many considerations. You have to think about how much money you have in your bank account. You have to think about the cost of migration. You have to think about the ease of doing the exams and all that. I was working on my plan A was try to get to the US, and my plan B was try to get to the UK. And eventually one of them worked, but this was because I scattered my net. I made it really wide, and I explored all my options at that point. I got a couple of scholarships to go to the US, but when the scholarship is $30,000 and your school fees is $100,000, that's not really a scholarship that you want to take, is it?
Yeah.
So I guess one way I mitigate the impact of failure in my own journey was to always have a plan A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Right. That way, I know that if this doesn't go as I want it to go, I have a backup option which I have considered in great detail. right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There's something you said that actually got me thinking. Yeah. I think I've been in a similar situation before, but I want to know if it's the same.
Mm.
The first time you failed, you mentioned the first time you failed during your primaries. Do you think you had the reaction was because this is the first, like that was the first time of you feeling anything? Do you
Yes.
think? Yeah,
Yes.
I think I had a similar experience. So I'm curious now. Do you think it was because that was the very first time you actually failed in anything, and you just couldn't believe it? You were just dumbfounded.
At that point, I couldn't believe that this
Exactly.
was me. I failed. I mean, because I did not have a plan B, because I thought, oh, this was done and dusted. I'd finished sorting it out. I mean, I know I'm good. I was overly confident, which I mean is
It's a good thing for them.
it's a good thing. Yeah. I was overly confident that I'd done it. I'd sorted it out. There's nothing else that's left to do. I'm just waiting for results now, and then boom, you look at the list and your name is not there. You clean your eyes and look at it again. So yeah.
And you start wondering what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
I had similar issue. So I had this fire accident back in IBC back then.
Yeah.
And I ended up failing my professional exam, which I thought no matter what I should have passed, even though I read the exam from the hospital. But then I couldn't believe it because it took time for me to accept that I failed an exam. I just couldn't it's not me. I used to tell my friends my pass mark was 50. There's no way I cannot get to 50. It's not possible.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not possible. They say I fail is I got a C. There's no way I cannot get a C. No matter how all the Jonesing I do, I know I'll get a C. So, but seeing that it got to me, and it got to me to the point that I couldn't talk about it because I wasn't used to failure. And a lot of people around me could notice I was slimming down, but they didn't know why I was slimming down because this was me dealing with it because I just wasn't used to failing.
Yeah. And you just couldn't come to terms with the fact that this was you and this was failure and both of you were together in the same boat.
Exactly. I actually struggled to accept that failure. And to the point, sometimes now it actually happens to you. There are certain things you feel like you are good at, and maybe it's the first time you're feeling that, but you're like, what's going on? Why would I feel this? You see what I mean? You'll be so confused. But if it's something you are used to, but I realize that people are so used to failure. Maybe when they were growing up, they weren't the best in their class or whatever. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
They got used to it and developed a thicker skin.
Exactly.
Yeah, towards.
I also think that you can only really develop resilience when you experience failure. If you have a really smooth path, that everything you do becomes great. Everything you do comes to fruition. Every single thing you just put your hands into just sort of goes really smoothly. I think that you would also learn less from life, and you'll be significantly less resilient than someone else who had experienced, like you said, your classmates who have been failing right from time. They developed a really thick skin because that's the only way you develop resilience, by trying your hands at something and falling. The same way babies learn to walk. They try, they stand up, they fall. They try, they stand up, they fall. And that's the only way they learn how not to stand and how not to put their feet on the ground.
Yeah, and this is linked to everything in life.
Yeah.
There's this video I watched on YouTube recently, and I realized the guy was saying I don't know, I think he must have seen it. An Asian guy, he was talking about rejection. He realized that he couldn't handle rejection properly, so he set out a task for himself to go out in the streets, go out and talk to people and get rejected more than 100 times.
Multiple times.
I don't know if you've seen that video.
I don't know if I've seen the video. I think I've heard of it.
But because the more you do that, the more you realize this is nothing. Nothing can faze you anymore. Because it becomes so normal to you. But a lot of people who are not used to people turning them down in jobs, whatever, it gets to them. And if they're not careful, some of them, it actually ends up affecting how they see themselves, and it affects their self-esteem. Because they feel like, no, I'm not used to this, so what's going on? They feel like the world is turning upside down against them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes this is usually the start of serious, significant mental health issues for some people, because you've had such a smooth ride so far, and then for the first time ever you fail.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh wow, okay. I guess this happened to me with my first physiology exam. It was an in-course, so it wasn't really serious. I mean, it wasn't really important to the grand scheme of things. So I wouldn't say I wasn't very ready for it. I was, as I thought I could have been. But I had a 39, which is literally the lowest score I'd ever had in any exam at all.
Yeah.
It was an in-course, and I remember going into my room and breaking down into tears at that point, because I was like, is this how I have failed my second MB? Because it wasn't really my second MB, but it contributes about 10%, if I remember correctly. Is this how I'm going to fail second MB and then drop out of medical school? I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I'm probably in trouble. But then again, I don't know how I dealt with that. I don't remember how I dealt with that. But then again, I had an episode where I just went back to my room. I cried for a bit, and then I don't remember what happened next. But it was, I think that was also one of the more one of the worst ways I've reacted to any failure at all. But I can sort of imagine how other people might have more severe reactions to when something means more to them, and they fail at that thing, right? Or when something is they have much more at stake than I did at that point, and they fail at that thing. How bad could their reaction be?
Yeah. But that's, there's this law. Now I'm linking it to power. Pardon me. There's this thing I read, I think in a book about power. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And it says something about a person who has a smooth ride is somebody who is blessed or something by the God that has a smooth ride. That is a bad thing for everything to go on your own time.
I think I remember this line. I can't
remember what it is, but somehow they have a point, because when you eventually face failure, it breaks you down.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It breaks you down because you are not used to it. You are so used to being at the top that you start wondering what the hell is going on. You are so used to being at the top in every goddamn thing. So you start wondering, man, what's going on? For people who are used to it, who end up like who are not used to that, who are so used to failure, and they had to build their confidence. You see what I mean? Over time, they became more resilient than people who are so used to, okay, do you know what? Let me just let me just go in there around this exam. I know I'm gonna pass it. They end up being so resilient more than those people.
This is very true for every single area of life. Not just academics. Every single thing.
Everything in life. Because the truth is, whether you like it or not, we all must face failure. As long as you are chasing something in this life, if you want to build a company, people reject you. If you put in contracts, if you put in tenders to get contracts or whatever, people will reject you. People will say no, we're not giving you. So you must make peace with failure and rejection.
You must make peace. I mean, that's really the summary. You must find a way to deal with. You must find a way to deal with failure in some way. You're either I don't know. You must just find a way to handle it. And I think that people may not agree with this. I think that the earlier you fail in your journey in life, the better off you are.
Yeah.
Right? Like the earlier you fail, if you fail as a really young person, at that point you have little to lose.
True.
Right? Yeah, you have less to lose than someone who's much older, or someone who has a family, or someone who already has kids, and his failure at that point is more devastating and is harder to deal with, especially if it's the first time.
I agree. Because a lot of people, they like you said, the first time they failed in their 30s or 40s, they became so devastated. So I think it's better for you to even start feeling on time. Like go out. Like there's something I tell my younger brother, and sometimes my parents get so annoyed and tell me I'm giving bad advice. I tell him go out there, try so many things, fail, get used to it. Like let's say for example you want to play football and fail. Maybe you try and fail, go for trials and and you don't get picked. It's failure. Get used to it. Try so many things.
I don't remember where I've read this exact line from. That's I don't know if it's one of some of these books that has maybe 100 things to tell your son or something like that. I can remember that same line. It says go out, try many things and fail at as many as you can, because only that way will you become better. You become a better person and you become more ready for life as a whole.
You become well-rounded.
Yeah.
You become well-rounded because when you've tried so many things, then you can tell a good story about something. And then every time something happens to me, I remember the Slumdog Millionaire, the movie.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Because you remember in that movie, he knew the answers to the question because he had experienced something in his life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the think about it now. You see, if you start deep down, you see that same thing happens to you. Let's say something like someone who asks a question, and maybe you're in a group of 5 people or 10 people, whatever. You realize you're the only one who has an answer to that question in a very, very well logical manner, because you must have experienced
it,
and you've reflected on it, and you can actually say, this is what you think is going to happen. And then to some people, they'll feel like, what is it feeling like? But no, it's because you've experienced it, you've tried it out before. Now you can talk about it,
and you've learned from the experience, and you've reflected on it.
Exactly. Now you can talk about it.
Yeah,
it's easy for you to actually say, okay, do you know what? This is what I think. This is what I
think. And that's something that's really useful. That we really use here in sort of the NHS a lot. Everyone uses the phrase reflective practice. Yeah. Because we know that one, doctors are prone to errors a lot. So when we make errors, I mean, the error itself is not the end of the world. I mean, you have to make sure in the first instance that the error is not devastating. But sometimes you can't really avoid that, can you? But there's concept of reflective practice that sort of encourages you to try as much as possible to learn from the event.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, some events are extremely serious that are career ending sometimes, but when they are not, and they are events that you can sort of take time and learn from, then reflective practice is generally encouraged in such a way that you've learned from it. When you encounter that situation the next time, you remember the experience you had initially, and you're less likely to make that same mistake.
Yeah, but like you see, he said in the NHS, I'm not a doctor, but I think it's normal in the Western world, like reflective practice is normal in teaching, in everything, because I've done a lot of reflective practice now. I think it's a common thing in the UK, like in the West, because it actually helps you. Because next thing, the question they will ask you is, okay, for example, what did you do? Did it work? If you were to do it again, what would you change? You see what I mean? Like, it will make you think. Because nobody's perfect. It's possible what you did actually worked the first time, but there's room for improvement. You see what I mean? You can actually amend it and say, okay, you know what? Let me try this thing out. Let's say you are trying to make a goosey and you put 1 cube of Maggi today. It's okay, tomorrow let me add 2 cubes of Maggi. You try something and just see. It's like doing an experiment because you're just trying out to see what works. You're trying to troubleshoot and see what works. But it's something we are not so fond of back home.
No, we're not. No. I completely agree. Yeah.
Back home in Nigeria,
I mean, it's something that we find useful. I just think that the system is not set up in such a way that people want to engage in reflective practice. A lot of places are so. I don't know if I would say they are so much in the past, or they lie to themselves too much that they don't want to. I don't know. I don't know how best to say. What the best or what to say the reason for the lack of reflective practice is. It's probably also because of the fact that no one generally does it, so we don't really think it's a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, before I moved here, I guess I'd come across the concept of reflective practice, but I'd not sort of engaged in reflective practice as a person.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd not engaged in reflective practice as a person, but I might have come across the concept. But then again, I didn't think it was necessary to implement it in my daily life. Yes, I would learn from my experiences. Yes, I would become a better person from every single time I sort of did stuff. But it wasn't something I did formally, sort of say, okay, it wasn't something I did and wrote down. It wasn't something I did. It was just something that just happened naturally. Right. So I think it's more because no one practices this as a thing.
Yeah, and I think the main reason why we don't really I think that lack of reflection in the Nigerian context actually affects a lot of things. Let's say, for example, because you are so reflective, you realize your relationships will be different.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I'm telling you the truth. Because you reflect,
100%. Yeah.
Your relationships will be different. If you reflect and say, okay, do you know what? I hurt Aaron. You'll be so. You'll be bold.
I've never hurt you though, have I?
Okay, you haven't. I'm just saying. It's okay.
No,
you can say, hey, I've hurt Iken, I've hurt Aaron.
Yeah.
You will go back and just apologize to mend that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Our relationships are better when we reflect, but because a lot of people do not reflect, they just carry on as if nothing happened.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It actually affects relationship because then you build up. There will be
you
a lot of resentment.
Yeah,
man,
exactly.
just wait for it. The person is going to burst out one day. Give it time. Give it time. The person is waiting for you. But the more you reflect, you realize, okay, you know what? I reflected on this. Maybe I was the guilty party. You can actually go back and tell again, okay, you know what? The guy, not be so. This is what I mean. And then you guys move on. But a lot of
I don't think reflective practice in itself is enough, right?
No, it's
one thing to reflect. It's another thing to actually act on whatever the product of reflection is.
No, but the thing is, we are human beings. No matter what, we like to believe that we are saints and other people are the devil. So I get that part. But all I'm trying to say, the reflective part actually helps some people because they end up having a better relationship because they actually reflect and actually they have this introspection to actually accept that they are at fault. Because I remember a conversation I had with my friend in Nigeria, and I was telling my friend something, and I told him, we had a conversation. He now told me it can never be his fault. It has to be other people. So I told him life doesn't work that way. What if you are the person?
Life never works that way. Yeah.
Exactly, but he told me it's not possible. He can never be the one at fault. But I don't believe so. But you see what I mean. But then it made me realize he's not the kind of person that believes in introspection. So he believes that everything has to be the other person's fault and never ever his fault.
Never his fault.
Exactly. Some people are like that, but you realize it's the introspection and reflection that actually helps you to think it through and say, okay, do you know what?
Yeah.
This thing I did here, maybe if I had said this thing in a calmer way, I would have gotten a better response. You see what I mean? You think
exactly.
But a lot of people, we are not used to that in Nigeria.
No, we're not.
Most people, they feel like something is wrong with you when you mention introspection and reflection.
Like, what are you talking about? They will think it's the general perception is that this is a waste of time.
Exactly.
Right. This is a waste of time. Okay, so you want me to sit down and think about what happened? What end? Like, to what end? But it's because it's not the practice, right?
Yeah.
It's because it's not the practice. Nowhere, whether or not you engage in reflective practice, no one encourages you to do it. No one asks you or tells you that, okay, you need to encourage the reflective practice because it makes you a better person. As a matter of fact, reflection in itself is extremely difficult.
Of course it is. Because it's actually hard to actually think. Thinking is the hardest thing on earth.
Yeah, reflection itself is difficult because you have to take yourself back through the process of whatever it is you're reflecting on. You have to painstakingly take your time, and in our world that is very fast-paced, where it's trying to happen or where the next thing is trying to happen, you feel like that's an instance where you are slowing yourself down unnecessarily.
Yeah.
But that's just how think about it sometimes. I find that it's a very difficult process for me because I have to slow down. But then again, when I do start sort of engaging it then comes easier.
Yeah, it becomes easier, but
Yeah.
the main reason why it's hard is if you are, there's something I used to say. Yeah. I tell somebody, if you're always working, you cannot think and come up with any innovative plan or any innovative anything. And the person told me that, and I think the person will not understand, because thinking is hard. For you to innovate, you must think.
Yeah, no, you must think.
It's hard. And if you're always in a fast-paced environment, fast-paced society, you're always working 6 days a week, 7 days a week. Trust me, you not come up with any innovation. Highest, you copy other people.
You won't.
Highest, you copy other people.
Yeah.
Copy the same blueprint and maybe and start something, but you will not innovate anything. You will not come up with any innovation. So
Very
thinking is a fact, whether the person denies it or not. You must slow down to think.
Yeah, you must.
You must. Even if you don't, there's no way you will come up with any innovative solution and say, "You know what?"
You just get stuck in a rut, and you get stuck in a cycle of you get stuck in a cycle essentially where you're just going and you're just living, and you're not experiencing life.
Exactly. So and is part of this thing that we preach and say, hard work. This, forget that. Sometimes you need to slow down and think.
A lot of times, really.
You need to. I do it. You need to slow down and think. Thinking is the only. You see, everybody. My dad used to tell me thinking is one of the hardest jobs on earth, and when I was young, and I didn't understand it. But now that I've grown, because he used to ask me, why do you think people pay other people to think for them?
To think for them, yeah.
Thinking is the hardest thing on earth. That's why you see consultants. Why do you think people pay them a lot? Because you pay them to actually think for you and come up with solutions.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard. But the person will tell you, but the person can do this thing for me in 6 hours. But the person has to think.
Exactly.
And that thinking can actually make the person, because you're taking a lot of mental energy to the point that you get so zonked at the end of the day. You get so energy, you just get so tired that you don't want to do anything else.
It's not surprising that consultancy is exhausting, right? For this specific reason, because it's mostly mental work where you're thinking about other people's problems for them.
Yeah. Because mental work is actually more stressful than physical work.
Yeah. So very true.
Exactly. So, but that part, because a lot of people do not do that, they don't reflect, they don't do the introspection. They always feel like there's something wrong with the other person. But this is part of failure as well, because if you fail and you reflect and have an introspection and say, okay, do you know what? Let's say, for example, I did this interview. This is what I did. I didn't do well. Okay, this is what I can change. This is what I can learn from the process. Okay, I didn't answer my questions correctly here. You see what I mean?
You're less likely to fail again, essentially.
Exactly. You get feedback, because they'll tell you this is where you messed up. Like, you actually change it here and there, and then you can move forward.
And but this is what people mean when we were younger, when people would always say experience is the best teacher.
Exactly.
Right? But experience is only the best teacher when you learn from it or her.
From your mistakes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But no matter what, I think everybody I still encourage everybody to go out there and make mistakes. I don't think if I'll put it that way, I don't think I believe failure is better than let me put it this way. I believe negatives are better than positives. Negatives are the things that actually make us to stop, pause, and think.
Yeah.
Positive, if you're always winning, you'll be like, no be me and you, they play this what? General market.
Exactly, let's go.
General market, I don't win again. You see what I mean? But it is the failure and the negative that makes you to pause.
Exactly, because when you're winning, you don't stop. You feel like, you're on a roll, let's go.
Yeah, and it makes you to think you become so arrogant. Let's be honest.
There is that actually.
You become so arrogant that you feel like there's nothing
can stop me. Nothing can stop me now.
Exactly. But it's the failure that slows you down and makes you, hey, you're still human. You can still fail. These are the things you need to work on. These are the things you need to actually improve on, and then you can actually be a better person.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, on that note, do you have anything else to say before we round off?
No, I think we sort of touched on everything. I guess the takeaway from all of this is that failure happens. Everyone fails, I guess, and it's about it's about what you take away from every experience of failure you have, and how you approach your next attempt if you want to do the same thing again. I think that's the very simple takeaway that I would say. And if anyone listening to this, if anyone listening to this should take away from this talk, that's about the only thing.
So it all depends on your reaction and the way you respond to things.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree as well. Well, on that note, I would say this is where we're going to round off today. And thank you, Ikenna, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's yeah.
No worries. We have to do this again.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Yeah, it was a great time. We'll do it again.
All right.
Thank you.
Man. Yeah.
Right, take care.